Okay. Hello, hello, let's be live. Is there anyone in chat to say hello? Well, let's get started. Like I said, there's going to be Class 2 homework that I'm working on. And that means, to begin with, I'm taking my best shot at choosing what HTML tags go along with the content in this here BBC homepage image. So I'll start by just copying down some of the whoa, autocomplete really did a number on me there. It knows I shouldn't be. Jim Fix says hello from YYC, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, airport code. Thank you for clarifying. I might not have known what you meant by YYC. So are you in the airport, or are you just like in that region? If you're comfortable saying. Okay, we got news. Oh, it must be a character recognition algorithm because it got it wrong. I guess I'll just type them then. Sport, real. Nope, real. Watch out for the autocomplete. Work life. Travel. Future. Culture. More. And search. Okay. Now I'm going to call all of this definitely a header. Oh, Jim FYYC. Okay. Not Jim Fick. Living in Calgary. Jim FYYC. Okay, good deal. I'll probably just call you Jim to make it easier for me. Hope that's okay. Okay, we've got ourselves a header. Now the next thing is to decide whatever to do with this BBC here. I guess if in doubt I could call it a span. And close my span. There we go. Jim says Jim is fine with me, thanks. Good deal. Thanks for coming out, by the way. Okay, sign in. May as well call that a span as well. And now here's where it gets interesting, because I think I can do an unordered list here. And use the trick from class, which I think I remember how to do. Nope, I don't remember how to do it. Huh. An option shift and drag? There we go. And close the list item. Got us. Silent Sai says, hey, error codes. Hey, Silent Sai, thanks for dropping in. I hope you're well tonight. How are you? Okay. We don't have any kind of automatic indenting, and I think I'm not going to do manual indenting on this one. Talent size says I am good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay. Let's move on forward. I'm going to put my phone on silent because I don't need to be getting dings all the time. Sound says, Sai says, I think you are in Ketchup Crew. I am in Ketchup Crew. How could you tell? Here is our, I'm going to call this the single opportunity to use H1 on this page and close H1. Soundside says, okay, good luck. You can find me Pomo voice chat in Discord. Okay, thanks for that. That's cool. Okay. This is an article, so I'm going to go with an H... Oh, not an H1. I don't want to use H1 more than twice on this particular page. So say that Israel and UAE strike historic peace deal. And... next I get to decide what this bit of text is, and I'm going to say P for paragraph. Israel and the UAE agree to normalize relations, marking the third Israel-Arab peace deal. That's a paragraph. And then we have... I have to decide whether this... I'm going to represent this vertical bar in the HTML, and I think I'm going to call it a style point and not try to show it in the HTML. It's a little small, let me go in there. Talking about this vertical bar. I'm going to say this is the span with the text Middle East. Oh, and I almost forgot. There's an image here, which I think I'll list before. I'll leave the hypertext reference blank for now. And I'm going to put all of this inside of a section. And then moving from left to right. Oh, I almost missed the date. I'll say that's a head. That's an H2. Thursday, 13 August. Now, for each of these sections here, Americans go home, how will the world vaccinate, the online productivity gyms, and the folk singer murdered. For each one of those, I'm going to use the same type of HTML. Interesting that it didn't unindent section for me. Americans go home, pension, ... I won't type everything that's there. Doesn't seem that important. Oh, but interestingly, there isn't a P here. There's just the span for Canada. Except, is it a span? Or is it like an H4? I think header maybe makes more sense than span on this one. I'd like to hear from the chat if anyone happens to have an opinion on that one. And again, there's an image, which I'm not going to fill in the hyperlink for. Delete the existing text. How will the world vaccinate? I'll type all this one. 7 billion people, question mark. An H4 on health. Next, the online quote productivity gyms. I actually tried one of those at one point, and it helped me a little bit, but I was still having enough trouble with productivity that I ended up losing a job that I had at the time. But anyway, moving on. Another section. This time it's the folk singer murdered for his music. And I just realized something. I've been using H2 for this bigger left section as well as for these smaller sections, and I don't think I like that. I think I would like to make these all into H3. H3 there, H3 there. Jim, thanks for the hosting and lurking, and the lurk, thank you. Interesting, what do I do with this one? This could almost be an H1, but I'm gonna say bbc.com is the only H1, and we'll say that this news is an H2. If everything under this heading is news, then what was the rest of it? Okay. I'm going to follow this section pattern for this bit down here. We've got image. We've got a headline. I think I'm comfortable calling it an H3. Yeah, that's it's almost like H2.5. Because if this down here is an H3, maybe this should be an H4. But maybe I'm thinking about it too hard. Oh wait, I left out a paragraph there. P header. Politicians calling other politicians names. Again with a P here. P tag. And this was US election 2020. This is Europe. And I have decided I enjoy copy pasting text from this image. Let's copy this section down below. That's for US and Canada. Okay, that's it for the content. And HTML is for content. Did I ever close that header? Oh, I did close that header down here. So this doesn't make any sense. Okay. Oh, I was going to review the way that I did the H numbers. I had H1 for BBC.com, welcome to BBC.com, H2 for the date. That could arguably be just a span. I think it's important enough to be a header. Then this is one that I feel good about, the H2. At some point I decided to make Canada an H4, whereas Middle East had been a span. I think I'm going to leave that inconsistency in place for now because I'm not sure which way I like better. Okay. I feel good about this assignment. I think I'm gonna call it on that. Oh, I still have some tea. That is a sip of tea. That was a short work session, but let's go into a break session while I get set for the next section of the homework. Oh, there goes the timer. Jim says, thanks for the stream and chat. I will stop by from time to time. Nice to meet you. Bye for now. Cheers. Cheers to you, Jim. Thanks. Okay, the assignment is to read, learn to code HTML and CSS, develop and style websites. So I guess let's get into it. Learn to Code HTML and CSS is a simple and comprehensive guide dedicated to helping beginners learn HTML and CSS. Outlining the fundamentals, this guide works through all common elements of front-end design and development. 1. Building your first web page. I wonder how much I'm going to do this as an interactive thing. Lesson 1. Building your first web page. This aside, I wonder if it's in this ad, I wonder if it's in an aside HTML tag. That would be kind of neat if it was. If you can, imagine a time before the invention of the internet. Okay. No, I can't do it. Websites didn't exist, and books, printed on paper and tightly bound, were your primary source of information. It took a considerable amount of effort and reading to track down the exact piece of information you were after. Today you can open a web browser, jump over to your search engine of choice, and search away. Any bit of imaginable information rests at your fingertips. And chances are someone somewhere has built a website with your exact search in mind. Within this book, I'm going to show you how to build your own websites using the two most dominant computer languages, HTML and CSS. Most dominant languages. I guess that makes sense. Before we begin our journey to learn how to build websites with HTML and CSS, it is important to understand the differences between the two languages, the syntax of each language, and some common terminology. What are HTML and CSS? HTML, hypertext markup language, gives content structure and meaning by defining the content as, for example, headings, paragraphs, or images. CSS, or cascading style sheets, is a presentation language created to style the appearance of content, using, for example, fonts or colors. The two languages, HTML and CSS, are independent of one another and should remain that way. CSS should not be written inside of an HTML document and vice versa. As a rule, HTML will always represent content, and CSS will always represent the appearance of that content. That's like Leon was saying with the separation of concerns and the golden rule. With this understanding of the difference between HTML and CSS, let's dive into HTML in more detail. Understanding common HTML terms. While getting started with HTML, you will likely encounter new and often strange terms. I wonder what this link is. It's a glossary. It's a link to a glossary somewhere on the internet. Over time, you will become more and more familiar with all of them, but the three common HTML terms you should begin with are elements, tags, and attributes. HTML elements. Elements are designators that define the structure and content of objects within a page. Some of the more frequently used elements include multiple levels of headings, identified as H1 through H6 elements, and paragraphs, identified as the P element. The list goes on to include A, div, span, strong, M elements, and many more. Elements are identified by the use of less than and greater than angle brackets, there and there, surrounding the element name. Thus, an element will look like the following. Element A. And just for fun, let's jump back into well, it's kind of fun to see what pictures come up as I type in. Anyway, .html. So there's our tag. It was a little silly to do that just for that, but let's take that full screen and go back to... Can I go back to this? Oh, come on. I don't know if it's worth it switching back to that every time. Tags. The use of less than and greater than angle brackets surrounding an element creates what's known as a tag. Tags are most commonly occur in pairs of opening and closing tags. Oh, there's the end of that work timer. We'll restart it. Tags most commonly occur in pairs of opening and closing tags. An opening tag marks the beginning of an element. It consists of a less than sign followed by an element's name and ends with a greater than sign. For example, less than div greater than. A closing tag marks the end of an element. It consists of a less than sign followed by a forward slash and the element's name and ends with a greater than sign. For example, less than slash div greater than. The content that falls between the opening and closing tags is the content of that element. An anchor link, for example, will have an opening tag of A and a closing tag of /A. What falls between these two tags will be the content of the anchor link. So anchor tags will look a bit like this: A ... /A. Attributes. Attributes are properties used to provide additional information about an element. The most common attributes include the ID attribute, which identifies an element, the class attribute, which classifies an element, the source attribute, which specifies a source for embeddable content, and the href attribute, which provides a hyperlink reference to a linked resource. Attributes are defined with an opening tag. Attributes are defined with the opening tag within the opening tag after an element's name. Generally, attributes include a name and a value. The format for these attributes consists of the attribute name followed by an equal sign and then a quoted attribute value. For example, an A element containing an href attribute would look like the following: A href equal quote http://shayhow.com end quote, then shayhow, and /a to end the A tag. To end the A element. The /a is a closing tag, and it closes the A element, the anchor element. Oh, we've got a demo here. That's kind of neat. HTML and result. Can I turn them both off? Huh. Cool. The preceding code will display the text shayhow on the web page and will take users to http://shayhow.com upon clicking the shayhow text. The anchor element is declared with the opening A and closing A tags encompassing the text, and the hyperlink reference attribute and value are declared with the href equals http shayhow.com in the opening tag. And here we have a nice visual. We have the element, we have the attribute, we have the tag. Element, attribute, and tag. Now that you know what HT elements, tags, and attributes are, let's take a look at putting together our first web page. If anything looks new here, no worries, we'll decipher it as we go. Setting up the HTML document structure. HTML documents are plain text documents saved with an .html file extension rather than a .txt file extension. To begin writing HTML, you first need a plain text editor that you are comfortable using. Sadly, this does not include Microsoft Word or Pages, as those are rich text editors. Two of the more popular plain text editors for writing HTML are for writing HTML and CSS are Dreamweaver and Sublime Text. Free alternatives also include Notepad++ for Windows and Text Wrangler for Mac. I have not heard of Text Wrangler for Mac. All HTML documents have a required structure that includes the following declaration and elements. I didn't have that in my BBC HTML at all. Exclamation doctype HTML, HTML, head, and body. The document type declaration, or doctype HTML, informs web browsers which version of HTML is being used and is placed at the very beginning of the HTML document. Because we'll be using the latest version of HTML, our document type declaration is simply bang doctype HTML. Following the document type declaration, the HTML element signifies the beginning of the document. Inside the HTML element, the head element identifies the top of the document, including any metadata accompanying information about the page. The content inside the head element is not displayed on the web page itself. Instead, it may include the document title, which is displayed on the title bar in the browser window, links to any external files, or any other beneficial metadata. All of the visible content within a web page which will fall within the body element. A breakdown of a typical HTML document structure looks like this. Doctype HTML, open and close tags for HTML, open and close for head, open and close for body, and within the head we have meta, charset, and title hello world. Within the body we have h1 hello world, and p, this is a web page. So there's, again, hello world, this is a web page. And it, with what Leon was talking about, it clearly has some styling, even though we haven't written any CSS. There is a tiny bit of CSS here that I'm not going to get into. But that's the result of that HTML. The hello world and this is a web page is all that's visible within the actual web page. The preceding code shows the document beginning with the document type declaration, doctype HTML, followed directly by the HTML element. Inside the HTML element come the head and body elements. The head element includes the character encoding of the page via the meta charset equal UTF-8 tag, and the title of the document via the title element. The body element includes a heading via the h1 element and a paragraph via the p element. Because both the heading and paragraphs are nested within the body, they are visible on the web page. TV Josh says, dude, hey TV Josh, what's up? Might do laundry, says TV Josh. I did laundry earlier today. It's a good, responsible sort of thing to do, right? I'm on some pretty dry HTML stuff. I don't know how much of this I'm going to continue to do on stream, although I will probably try to get through the rest of this half-hour-glass timer on it. When an element is placed inside of another element, also known as nested, it is a good idea to indent that element to keep the document structure well organized and legible. In the previous code, both the head and body elements were nested and indented within the HTML element. The pattern of indenting for elements continues as new elements are added inside the head and body elements. Self-closing elements. In the previous example, the meta element had only one tag and didn't include a closing tag. Fear not, this was intentional. You can see up here that the meta tag doesn't have a closing tag. Some elements simply receive their content or behavior from attributes within a single tag. The meta element is one of those elements. The content of the previous meta element is assigned with the use of the attribute and value. Other common self-closing elements include BR, IMG, meta, WBR, embed, input, param, HR, link, source. The structure outlined here, making use of the doc type HTML document type and HTML head and body elements, is quite common. We'll want to keep this document structure handy, as we'll be using it often as we create new HTML documents. Code validation. No matter how careful we are when writing our code, we will inevitably make mistakes. Thankfully, when writing HTML and CSS, we have validators to check our work. The W3C has built both HTML and CSS validators that will scan code for mistakes. Validating our code not only helps it render properly across all browsers, but also helps teach us the best practices for writing code. In practice, as web designers and front-end developers, we have the luxury of attending a number of great conferences dedicated to our craft. We're going to make up our own conference, Styles Conference, and build a website for it through the following lessons. Here we go. 1. Let's open our text editor, create a new file called index.html, and save it to a location we won't forget. I'm going to create a folder on my desktop named Styles Conference and save this file there. Feel free to do the same. Within the index.html file, let's add the document structure, including the doc type HTML, document type, and the HTML head and body elements. We have HTML, we have head and body. Inside the head element, let's add the meta and title elements. The meta element should include the proper charset and attribute and value, while the title element should contain the title of the page. Let's say Styles Conference. Title Styles Conference. 4. Inside the body element, let's add the H1 and P elements. The H1 element should include the heading we wish to include. Let's use Styles Conference again. And the P element should include a simple paragraph to introduce our conference. Every year, the brightest web designers and front-end developers descend on Chicago to discuss the latest technologies. Join us this August. Now it's time to see what we've done. Let's go find our index.html file. Mine is within the Styles Conferences folder on my desktop. Double-clicking this file or dragging it into a web browser will open it for us to review. And there's a nice little web page. Let's switch gears a bit, moving away from HTML and take a look at CSS. Remember, HTML will define the content and structure of our web pages, while CSS will define the visual style and appearance of our web pages. Understanding common CSS terms. In addition to HTML terms, there are a few common CSS terms you will want to familiarize yourself with. These terms include selectors, properties, and values. As with the HTML technology, the more you work with CSS, the more these terms will become second nature. Those terms are selectors, properties, and values. Selectors. As elements are added to a web page, they may be styled using CSS. A selector designates exactly which element or elements within our HTML to target and apply styles, such as color, size, and position, to. Selectors may include a combination of different qualifiers to select unique elements, all depending on how specific we wish to be. For example, we may want to select every paragraph on a page, or we may want to select only one specific paragraph on a page. Selectors generally target an attribute value such as an ID or class value, or target the type of element such as an H1 or P. Within CSS, selectors are followed with curly brackets. I've heard them called curly braces. Curly brackets, which encompasses the styles to be applied to the selected element. The selector here is targeting all P elements. Select P elements. Properties. Once an element is selected, a property determines the styles that will be applied to that element. Property names fall after a selector within the curly brackets and immediately preceding a colon. Immediately preceding a colon, so like color. Property names. Yeah, okay. There are numerous properties we can use, such as background, color, font size, height, and width, and new properties are often added. In the following code, we are defining the color and font size properties to be applied to all P elements. P color is something, semicolon. Font size is something, semicolon. Values. So far we've selected an element with a selector and determined what style we'd like to apply with a property. Now we can determine the behavior of that property with a value. Values can be identified as the text between the colon and semicolon. Here we are selecting all P elements and setting the value of color property to be orange and the value of the font size property to be 16 pixels. P color orange, semicolon, font size colon 16px, semicolon. To review, in CSS, our rule set begins with a selector, which is immediately followed by curly braces. Within these curly braces are declarations consisting of property and value pairs. Each declaration begins with a property, which is followed by a colon, the property value, and finally a semicolon. It is common practice to indent property and value pairs within the curly brackets. As with HTML, these indentations help keep our code organized and legible. Figure 1.03, CSS syntax outlining including a selector, properties, and values. Selector, property, value. Knowing a few common terms and the general CSS syntax is a great start, but we have a few more items to learn before jumping in too deep. Specifically, we need to take a closer look at how selectors work within CSS. Working with selectors. Selectors, as previously mentioned, indicate which HTML elements are being styled. It is important to fully understand how to use selectors and how they can be leveraged. The first step is to become familiar with the different types of selectors. We'll start with the most common selectors: type, class, and ID selectors. Type selectors. Type selectors target elements by their element type. For example, should we wish to target all division elements, div, we would use a type selector of div. The following code shows a type selector for division element as well as the corresponding HTML it selects. Okay, so we have CSS, a div, and in the HTML we have opening and closing tags for the div element. Class selectors. Class selectors allow us to select an element based on the elements. Oregon Curtis asks, are you going for as long as the hourglass goes? Yeah, that's kind of my Pomodoro timer. Oregon Curtis, you're assuming it's an hourglass. That's a reasonable assumption, but that's actually not correct. It is a half-hour glass. And after this hourglass, I'll check in with the chat and see what people are interested in seeing, whether I should go on with some more of this or switch gears to something else. But shout out to Oregon Curtis. Thumbs up there. Where was I? Class selectors. Class selectors allow us to select an element based on the element's class attribute value. Oregon Curtis, thanks for that follow. Am I following you yet? I should be following you. I don't know if I am. I don't have Twitch open right now. Class selectors allow us to select an element based on the element's class attribute value. Class selectors are a little more specific than type selectors, as they select a particular group of elements rather than all elements of one type. Oregon Curtis says, yeah, pretty sure you are. Okay, cool. Class selectors allow us to apply the same styles to different elements at once by using the same class attribute value across multiple elements. Within CSS, classes are denoted by a leading period, followed by the class attribute value. Here the class selector will select any element containing the class attribute value of awesome, including both division and paragraph elements. So in the CSS we have a .awesome, and in the HTML for both of these element tags we have class equal awesome. ID selectors. ID selectors are even more precise than class selectors as they target only one unique element at a time. Just as the class selectors use an element's class attribute value as the selector, ID selectors use an element's ID attribute value as the selector. Regardless of which type of element they appear on, ID attribute values can only be used once per page. If used, they should be reserved for significant elephants. Haha, elephants. Remember that, significant elephants. No, significant elements. Within CSS, ID selectors are denoted by a leading hash sign, followed by the ID attribute value. Here the ID selector will only select the element containing the ID attribute of ShayHow. So in the CSS it's hashtag ShayHow, and in the HTML it's div ID equals ShayHow. And of course I'm very curious now what would happen if I used the same ID twice. I mean, would the internet stop working? Would the page not apply the styles? I sort of want to know. Where is my... I want to find out. So, I've already forgotten how to do this, but forgotten or didn't learn. No, forgotten probably. So we'll call this P. ID equals ID. We'll be really basic with it. Hello world. And P ID equals quote ID. Goodbye world. And then for this experiment to make any sense, I think I can use a style tag. And then use ID. And then write name or color red. Now we can reveal in Finder. Oops, let's get the right profile up on my browser. Need to get out of the full screen mode for this. Oops, not brownies. As tasty as they look. Okay, it didn't break anything. The styling still worked. So I feel a little bit misled by that web page. But I do know you're not supposed to reuse an ID, so I'll change this to ID1 and ID2. Okay. ID equals ShayHow. Only use the ID once. That's the lesson from all of that. Additional selectors. Selectors are extremely powerful, and the selectors outlined here are the most common selectors we'll come across. These selectors are also only the beginning. Many more advanced selectors exist and are readily available. When you feel comfortable with these selectors, don't be afraid to look into some of the more advanced selectors. Alright, everything is starting to come together. We've added elements to a page inside our HTML, and then we can select these elements and apply styles to them using CSS. Now let's connect the dots between our HTML and CSS and get these two languages working together. Referencing CSS. In order to get our CSS talking to our HTML, that's the interesting thing about HTML and CSS is they're two separate languages, but their usage is so intertwined. And I guess it's the web browser that knows how to handle all of that. That's interesting. The best practice for referencing our CSS is to include all of our styles in a single external style sheet, which is referenced from within the head element of our HTML document. Using a single external style sheet allows us to use the same styles across an entire website and quickly make changes site-wide. That's good. Other options for adding CSS. Other options for referencing CSS include using internal and inline styles. You may come across these options in the wild, but they are generally frowned upon, as they make updating websites cumbersome and unwieldy. To create our external style sheet, we'll want to use our text editor of choice again to create a new plain text file with a .css extension. Our CSS file should be saved within the same folder or a subfolder where our HTML is located. Within the head element of the HTML document, the link element is used to define the relationship between the HTML file and the CSS file. Because we are linking to CSS, we use the rel attribute with a value of stylesheet to specify their relationship. Furthermore, the href or hyperlink reference attribute is used to identify the location or path of the CSS file. Considering the following example of an HTML document head element that references a single external style sheet. We've got head, we've got link, rel equals style sheet, href equals main.css, close, and slash head to close the head. In order for the CSS to render correctly, the path of the href attribute must directly correlate to where our CSS file is saved. In the preceding example, the main.css file is stored within the same location as the HTML file, also known as the root directory. If our CSS file is within a subdirectory or subfolder, the href attribute value needs to correlate to this path accordingly. For example, if our main.css file were stored within a subdirectory named stylesheets, the href attribute would be stylesheets/main.css using a / to indicate moving into a subdirectory. At this point, our pages are starting to come to life slowly but surely. We haven't delved into CSS too much, but you may have noticed that some elements have default styles we haven't declared within our CSS. That is the browser imposing its own preferred CSS styles for those elements. Fortunately, we can overwrite these styles fairly easily, which is what we'll do next using CSS resets. Oh, okay, this is interesting, getting into CSS resets. Using CSS resets. Every web browser has its own default styles for different elements. How Google Chrome renders headings, paragraphs, lists, and so forth may be different from how Internet Explorer does. To ensure cross-browser compatibility, CSS resets have become widely used. CSS resets take every common HTML element with a predefined style and provide one unified style for all browsers. These resets generally involve removing any sizing, margins, paddings, or additional styles and toning these values down. Because CSS cascades from top to bottom, more on that soon, our reset needs to be at the very top of our style sheet. Doing so ensures that those styles are read first and that all of the different web browsers are working from a common baseline. There are a bunch of different resets available to use, all of which have their own fortes. One of the most popular resets is Eric Myers' reset, which has been adapted to include styles for the new HTML5 elements. If you're feeling a bit more adventurous, there is also normalize.css, created by Nicholas Gallagher. Normalize.css focuses not on using a hard reset for all common elements, but instead on setting common styles for these elements. It requires a stronger understanding of CSS as well as awareness of what you'd like your styles to be. Let's take a look at this Eric Myers reset. Wow, there's a lot of different selectors. And it takes away the margin, puts the font size at 100%, inherits the font, and vertical align baseline. Meanwhile, body has a line height of 1. Ordered list and unordered list has list style of none. Block quotes, Q has quotes of none. Okay, that's interesting. Cross-browser compatibility and testing. As previously mentioned, different browsers render elements in different ways. It's important to recognize the value in cross-browser compatibility and testing. Websites don't need to look exactly the same in every browser, but they should be close. Which browsers you wish to support and to what degree is a decision you will need to make based on what is best for your website. In all, there are a handful of things to be on the lookout for when writing CSS. The good news is that anything is possible, and with a little patience, we'll figure it all out. In practice, picking back up where we left off on our conference ads website, let's see if we can add a bit of CSS. Hey, Zybrith just rated the channel with 13 viewers. Welcome, raiders. Cheers. I don't have actually any, not even any tea in my cup, but thanks for coming by. Now, oh, that's the end of this timer. So let's bring out the 5-minute break timer. Oregon Curtis says, hey, Zybrith. Zybrith says hi. I hope I'm saying Zybrith correctly. We've got lots of hey, this person, hey, that person. I like to see this. Good and friendly in the chat. Raiders, go ahead and settle in. I've been working through the homework for class 2 of 100 devs, but I have found that I'm not that excited about just reading through a thing on stream, so I might jump over to some Code Wars if that's what the chat thinks sounds interesting. I'll give you a moment to think about that while I get some. Oregon Curtis says Code Wars for sure. Okay, Code Wars it'll be. Let me put up my BRB screen. Zybrith says, you are pronouncing it correctly. Stream went well. I was finally able to correctly pull some data from the Poke API today. LMAO. Way to go. That's good stuff. Super Samurai 123 says, Code Wars and I like the timer. I'm liking this enthusiasm for Code Wars. Okay, Super Samurai, let me get... I wish I had a screen that had both that and also this. I do have such a screen. Will it hit the corner? Let's get caught up. Oregon Curtis says, the reading can be rough. I generally try not to stream it unless there's something you can code along with and play with the code as you work on it. That's a good thought. Super Samurai says, Code Wars and I like the timer. Did I read that already? Maybe I did. Yeah, I saw this set of Pomodoro eyeglass timers. Pomodoro hourglass timers. One of them's a half hour, one of them's 5 minutes. And this is the 5-minute one here, naturally. If I haven't said it already, thank you for the Thank you for following Super Samurai 123. Thank you for following Zybrith. And Oregon Curtis says, OG DVD icon, nice. Will it hit the corner? You know, it has come close to hitting the corner on occasion. I don't think it's ever actually gotten there. Zybrith says, I hope your stream goes well. Air codes, I am going to get some rest for tonight. Oh yeah, rest easy. Have a good one. Oregon Curtis says, unless you go full ASMR when reading. Yeah, I don't think I have the ASMR skills. I don't think I have that. Oh, okay. Thank you for following Purple Porygon. I will say one thing for reading the readings on stream is I'm not sure I would pay nearly as much attention to it if I wasn't reading it in public. Okay. Let me sort out my timers over here. And we are going to go on a session of from Oregon Curtis. That's a good point. Yeah, right. It's when you're doing something on stream, you tend to give it more attention and give it maybe the consideration that it deserves. But it's a little rough for the audience. I'm beginning to realize. I think Code Wars is a lot easier to be engaged with. Okay, Code Wars, your next challenge. 7Q, get the middle character. You are going to be given a word. Your job is to return the middle character of the word. If the word's length is odd, return the middle character. If the word's length is even, return the two middle characters. I can train this. So, let me write some examples to help me think through this. Length equal 4. Oregon Curtis says, hey, oh hey, you should look at blah post on using Code Wars. Ryan K. Hawkins, thank you for the follow. Glad to have you here. Oh, coming in with the Leon emote. Let me take a glance at this. I don't know if I'll take the time to read through it right now, but I'm definitely going to. Can I copy it from the window I have here? Finding kata to complete. A few things to consider. Completing a kata. Sorry, I've got this on the other window. Joining a clan. Okay, it's not terribly long. But I don't have it on the right screen. Particularly this spot, my recommended settings for a beginner are to click on the Fundamentals tag, 8Q, and sort by most completed. Ryan says, Oregon Curtis does 4 Qs for dinner. Then you can bookmark them to store them for later. Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna be bold and head into this one. Oregon Curtis says to Ryan K. Hawkins, I don't know, they mostly eat me. Okay, length equals 4. So length mod 2 is going to equal 0, and 4 divide 2 is going to give you position 2, but a test which has 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's look at an example with 5 words, 5 letters, ASDF, G. Ha, that's 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the odd is the easy case. Well, length will be 5. 5 mod 2 modulo, if I can find it, is going to equal 1. And if we take floor of 5 divided by 2 is going to be 2.5. Take floor of that, we get 2, and we're good. Okay, that gives me what I need. So if s.length mod 2 equals 0, I'm going to do the not equal 0 case because I like that one better. Now in Python it's just s bracket I, not I. You know what, we're going to say that length equals s dot. Is that legal to give this the same name as that? We're going to find out. And I need to let length. And we have an else return s at length. Length. I forgot that it's the half. Math dot floor of length over 2. And in this case, length dot 2 minus 1 plus s at length, simply length divided by 2. Okay, let's do some test. Oregon Curtis, I would declare length with a const instead of let. Yeah, I like that. Oregon Curtis says, as I don't think it's going to change at all in the program. It's not going to change, that's correct, in anywhere in the program. So Curtis, what's the advantage of doing const? I mean, it makes sense to do it at const if it's not going to change, but what do we gain? Like, does it execute faster? Does it make it easier for someone else to read? What are the specific benefits? And Ryan, I apologize, I don't have an exclamation Twitter thing set up, but I can give you that. Oregon Curtis says, I think it's semantics and all make it easier to trace bugs. Super Cato, it's good practice. Hey Super Cato, thanks for stopping in. TV Josh says, const lets you know if you attempt to change it. That's a good one. You get guardrails from the compiler. Thanks for the follow, Super Cato. Let me try to check up here. I gotta get a Twitter command, it seems like. But I put it in there manually. Curtis says, basically if you don't want it to change, then declare it with const, and then if something does happen where it changes, it throws an error. Right, okay. That's good knowledge. And Super Kato says, hey. Hi. Okay, let's do the attempt. It works. Let's take out these comments. I need to attempt it again since I technically changed it. Okay. Let's see about if we got some nice short one. Ooh, I got it. Okay, let me I'm gonna send myself email. It's not, but that's not my email. But anyway. TV Josh says you could repeat length over 2 less. That's true. I did write length over 2 a lot of times. How many times did I write it? 3 times. 3 times writing length over 2 is definitely enough times that it would have made sense to define a constant that was length over 2. Ryan Hawkins says class 2 and already doing Code Wars. Nice. Well, there's a reason for that, and I'll get into that. I'll get into it. But Oregon Curtis points out the Twitter link on your links page is wrong. That's the one at bio.link/aircodes, and you are absolutely right about that. I wonder if I can just fix that up right now. How long would it take me to fix that? I'd have to log in. But I've got the login page open, so hopefully it'll work though. Ryan Hawkins points out the one he linked through chat is good though. Yeah, I pulled that directly from Twitter. I was annoyed that error codes was taken, so I was trying this one and trying that one, trying the other one, and sooner or later it'll be too costly to change it, and I'll stop changing it altogether. But until that happens, I'm, I guess, destined to deal with little problems like this. I also wonder which GitHub I have on that bio.link error codes page. I've been going back and forth on whether to link my personal one or the organization I created for putting silly projects on. Okay, let's take a look at the solutions. I wonder if there's any one-line wonders in this. Oh, yep, there is. So s.substring this one ends up calling s.length twice, and substring must be the initial. Well, let's look at MDN. Substring. Super Kato says, I think your solution is just as good. Thank you. Sometimes readability is better than one-line wonders. That is true. That said, I also enjoy taking apart a good one-line wonder. Interestingly, this string.prototype.substring is no longer recommended. So it's 1 for the start position and 2 for the given number of characters. Okay. Yeah, sometimes readability is better than one-line wonders. I will buy that. Let's see if we've got a more... How do we feel about readability on ternary statements? I don't know how I don't know how I feel about readability on ternary statements. Although when it's broken out onto multiple lines like this, it actually can work out pretty nicely. Ryan pointed out class 2 Super Cato, they have their time and place. Yeah, and I'd say one of those times and places is at the top of the solutions list for Code Wars. But yeah, class 2 and already doing Code Wars. The reason for that is I have a job as a data engineer that I'm starting tomorrow, and so I shouldn't be up too late on the stream because I've got, office hours tomorrow. Not office hours, but I've got hours in the office tomorrow. And I'm going to be chatting for half a moment, so let's go to the webcam. I'm working as a data engineer, so I have a lot of experience in, at least I have more experience in Python. And sometimes I'm drink cam. Yeah, right. So I have pretty good Python, but my JavaScript, like especially anything async in JavaScript, just completely blows my mind. And my HTML and CSS is kind of wobbly, even though I've taken courses that like touch on web development. So I don't need to do 100 devs. I have the data engineer job, but I want to do it for, I tweeted about this, but I want to do it to have something new to learn, and also because I think I could build some pretty cool music and data powered web apps if I learn full stack web development in a deep way. And also it gives me something to do on stream. Like we can, for those of us who are, I feel better about look at my stream in the self-promo channel if I'm actually going through the cohort and doing the same readings and learning the same material, so I have a common reference point with all of y'all. Ryan K. Hawkins says, welcome to the cohort. Thank you, I appreciate that. I really do. Okay, let's get back into it with another kata. Next kata. 8q, sum of positive. You get an array of numbers, return the sum of all the positive ones. This is one where my first instinct is, well, we mentioned Python, right? Orkin Curtis asks, so will you utilize HTML, CSS, JavaScript in your new lab? Ryan K. Hawkins, quick tip, if you rate the kata, you get an extra point. Oh. Do I care about the points, though? I'm not sure that I do. Orkin Curtis asks, so will you utilize HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in your new job, you think? Like maybe you'll need to make web pages with the data stuff you come up with. Yeah, maybe I'll need to make web pages to display the stuff, and that could be a cool use case. I think one of the big things that I'm going to be doing is automating decision making across the organization, and I think there's going to be a variety of. So we have a central data warehouse, and I'll be working on that to some extent, and managing and maintaining that. But then I think of it as like the GitHub Octocat, and I'm going to have my tendrils reaching out from the central data warehouse to other parts of the company. And in those places, I think having an understanding of how the web works and how JavaScript runs and APIs and all of that. I don't know how much HTML, CSS I'll necessarily be using in the new job. I know that the primary languages are going to be SQL and Python. TV Josh says, what else would you do with your life anyway? Oh my gosh, we have a raid from Hello, it's Rufio. Hi! I'm gonna go full cam for this one. Welcome, raiders. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I can keep up with this chat here. If there's anything really important, you can say it when the chat calms down. I'm just gonna enjoy the general hype of the chat right now. Oh, this is exciting. Okay, we've got a Namales. So much hype in the chat right now. This is excellent. Yeah, so Raiders, I was just telling the story. I start a new job tomorrow. I'm going to be a data engineer. Ryan K. Hawkins says, hello, it's Rufio. It's from the first cohort and is mentoring the current one. That's really cool. I've... Yeah, thanks. It is exciting, isn't it? A new job and everything. Yeah, I start tomorrow at 9 a.m. So I can't be at this party for too much later tonight. Thank you for the follows that have been coming in. I'll go back and shout those out as I get the chance to. But yeah, thanks everyone. It's great. So my story is I'm starting that job, but you know, there's always something else out there to learn. And for me, thanks for the good wishes, Robodom. Yeah. I know Python and I know SQL pretty well, which is what I'm going to need for this new job, and that's what I'm going to be using on my day job. But here I am also learning 100 devs. What's the story there? Well, I made a tweet about it a little earlier that because of going through class, I think it was class 2, and Leon said, you know, tell someone what you're doing. And hey, Exceltum says love Python. Yeah, I love Python too. I think Python is the nearest thing I have to a native programming language, if that makes sense. But I'm doing this because I like learning and I want something new to learn. I'm doing this because I think once I learn full stack web development a little better, then I think that I could make some pretty cool data-driven, interactive, musical web apps. And also, I love it because it gives a community to interact with. Like, if I was just streaming random code wars on my own, I don't think I would have gotten the raids that I got tonight. So thanks so much, everyone, for stopping in and being a part of this community. I feel really welcomed by the community. Someone even earlier tonight said, welcome to the cohort. For the cohort, I've just finished watching class 2 and I was doing some reading on stream from the homework. Oh my gosh, thank you for subscribing. Oh, that's a YouTube sub. That's still exciting. Hey, Serious Scaper. Not many people are on the YouTube channel right now, so it's neat to have that come in. Where was I? Pink Star says, yeah, Ketchup Crew. Hello Review says, wait, so what does a data engineer do? Well, a pretty good summary. I mean, I haven't started this exact job yet, so I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I can tell you what I did on the coding challenge to try and get the job. They gave me, there was some data in a SQL database, a relational database, and there was some data in a CSV file. They said, write some Python to load this CSV data into the SQL database, and then answer some analytical questions about the data using SQL. And what I'm basically going to be doing is writing a lot of Python to load data from disparate sources across the internet or across the company, you know, different APIs, different sources, and then load that into the data warehouse, and then keep track of it once it's there. Thank you for all these follows. Man, this is exciting. Where... Like that hype music. So what a data engineer does is work on data pipelines, writing Python code and writing SQL code to get data to go from one place to another place. Rascal2 says, "Ah, cool, so getting and keeping the data organized and doing stuff with it." Yeah, exactly. That sums it up pretty well. Hello, it's Rufio says, "Very fancy and very unfamiliar." Yeah, I guess it is kind of fancy stuff. And I'm working at this, I'm not going to say the company, but it's this fancy food tech company that I'm pretty excited to be working for. King 410 is King is coming in with the answer here. I haven't even thought about. Robodom asks, "Did you do a lot of networking to the job?" Actually, I don't think Leon would like this answer very much, but I did zero networking. I just clicked apply somewhere. I think it was on ZipRecruiter. But I already had a job in the data programming space. I think on my first job, well, that was also one where I applied to it, but I had gone to a data science boot camp, and also, I have some advantages on my resume. Like, I have a master's degree in the physical sciences, and I think without that, it might have been harder to break that door down in the beginning. But once you have a job, it becomes easier to get a job. So, keeping up with the chat here, what are some common tools you use as a data engineer? So Python and SQL are really the huge ones. And within Python, you have things like pandas and scikit-learn. Now we're getting a little bit, when I say scikit-learn, we're getting a little bit into data science, because that's the modeling and machine learning models of it all. Rascal2 says, "Yeah, Python's got quite the ecosystem for working with data. Same technically possible with JS, just not as many libraries that I'm aware of that are as good as the Python ones." Yeah, like Rascal, for example, there's the Danfo library, which is like they say it's trying to be similar to pandas, but just for Python. X Sculptum says, "Pandas, NumPy, yada yada yada, mod blah." Okay, there we go. Or is that are you like being me there and saying? X Sculptum points out, "Probably different if it's not your first tech job." Yeah, exactly. It's different if it's not your first tech job. I'm not gonna say anything bad about the advice to go network. I think that's a great way to get your foot in the door. And like if just applying hadn't worked, I'm sure I would have eventually tried networking. Like if doing the easy way wasn't working, I would have tried it in all of the hard way. Real Sunny Scotty says, "JavaScript good for visualizing data with D3, etc." Yeah, I'm sure you could get a lot done in data with JavaScript. And as time goes by and data gets increasingly important, I think the JavaScript libraries will only grow and get better, right? X Sculptum asked, "Is that a frog on that cat tower?" It is a frog on that cat tower. Yes, you are correct. Stay Thirsty 90, thank you for the follow. Let me I almost don't want to let the music go out of my headphones, but let me bring the frog. It'll be my exercise, and it'll also let you see the frog up close. This is a concrete frog. It helps my cat tower not fall over. And speaking of cats, I would like to introduce my friend Samson. Say hello, Sammy. Oh, poor guy. I think I made him sneezy. Put me down, human, the chat says. That is a Russian blue, yeah. Good call, chat. Pink Star says that's what it's called. Yeah, it's called a cat tower. I have a few cat towers and my cats hate them. Sam, are you okay over there? I think he's sneezing with rage from me picking him up. Sammy? Hello, it's Rufio says I'm going to head out, but glad to have joined your stream. Best of luck in that job tomorrow. You're going to rock it. Thank you, Rufio. And you have a good night or day or whatever. TV Josh says, can he get down? Yes, he can get down. He'll be fine. He goes up and down there all the time. I wouldn't put him up there if he didn't have an easy way down. If he was on top of the fridge, then it might be a little more difficult. What time is it? I'm going to drop this timer. Actually, before I drop the working timer, I'm going to fill up my water cup. Okay, Ryan K. Hawkins asked, how often do you plan on streaming? That's a little up in the air right now. With this new job, the first priority is holding down the new job and making a good impression and, making a good start and all of those good things. But at least a couple times a week, I hope to be streaming. I think I maybe wrote down a schedule that it was going to be Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7. But, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. I'm scrolling back in the chat here. Oh, Jim1618 writes, I've been working on learning Python and been practicing SQL and Tableau. I'm trying to find a good resource, 100 devish. What resources would you recommend to get a similar education as what we're getting at 100 devs? Well, JM1618, I don't know if there is a similar thing to what Leon is doing out there in the data space. But I will say there's something called the Data Engineering Zoom Camp that Data Engineering Zoom Camp, let me find it and put it in chat. Yeah, Data Talks Club, Data Engineering Zoom Camp. there's videos on YouTube that go along with it, and there's an outline, and it looks pretty good. I think I don't know how beginner friendly it is. But you said you were getting started with SQL and Tableau, and X Sculptum says, yeah, I haven't seen anything like 100 devs but for Python. Well, maybe one of the members of the stream team will decide that Python is their new bread and butter, and they'll host like a spin-off sort of thing. Free Code Camp has a Python section, right? So if you need review on basic Python, then that'll do that. Okay, I think things are calming down in the chat. I think now's a good time to get back into the next Code War. Oregon Curtis says, air codes, I think it's your opportunity. Well, that'd be exciting. Let me get through 100 devs first. Soak up some knowledge. Participate in this community before I think about trying to start something new. X Carlton says, I started in another bootcamp that was back-end focused, back-end and Python. Sorry, that was back-end Python focused. I still have access to all the materials from it, lol. Oh, interesting. Pink Star says, lol, oh my gosh, I was going to say that's a cool hand, but it was your hand, lol. Yep, it's just my hand. It's my half hourglass timer too. JM says, error codes, thanks very much for the information and link. You're welcome. Pink Star says, and Codecademy too. Yeah, Codecademy is a good one. There's another one called Data Camp that I think is pretty good. There are lots of resources out there for Python. Okay. Oops. Let's get going on this next. Oh, yeah. Let's get going on this next one. So we have array, and I think we can filter it on a goes to a greater than 0. Dot reduce on the sum, with a comma b going to a plus b and starting on 0. And maybe return that. See if that does it. Unexpected token. Do I need an equal for the arrow? Is that the syntax? Ryan Hawkins says equal instead of dash. Yep. Okay. Okay, that works a little better. Gotta get that right syntax. Alright. And just because I feel like it, I'm gonna... Well, let me just see what the... Pixar says, these are some nice jams. X Galton says, arrow functions trip me up still. Jam says, thanks everyone for the additional tips on the Python resources. Music is so jamming. You know what? I'm gonna allow a shout out to the music by turning on notify in chat for the music. This is the music's coming from Pretzel Rocks. And it's the Happy EDM playlist, because I needed a pick-me-up when I was getting started on the stream tonight. I don't need it as much now with all the great energy from the chat. Xcultum says, yeah, I want to start streaming too soon too. Well, yeah, streaming is a lot of fun. I like the attention. I like the sense that there's a group social dynamic going on. Xcultum says, always good finding more 100 dev streamers. Yeah, I'm glad to be considered among that number. Let's go on to a next kata. Nathan, this is keep hydrated. Fork the current version of the selected language to propose changes. I don't need to propose changes. Rascal 2 says, yep, there's a bunch of us. Almost hard to keep track of them all. So here's the next track from Pretzel Rocks. I turned on the... JM asks, let's go back to the cam for this one. JM asks, is data engineering more towards data science or data, or wait, JMS is DE more towards DS or DA? I think that's DS equals data science, DA equals data analytics. I would say more like data science and data analytics are over in one corner. So here's data science and data analytics, and here's software engineering over here, and data engineering is kind of in the middle. Another way to talk about it is the pyramid of data needs, and for data science, you need to have data. Well, I don't remember the details of it anymore, but definitely, in order to have data science going on, you have to have data engineering being done. And a lot of times, if a company only hires one data person, they may hire a data scientist. Oh, you're asking data analysis isn't math heavy, but data science is, so wondering how much math data engineering requires. Well, in terms of requiring math, I would say data engineering is closer to data analysis, because you don't need to know the linear algebra behind the machine learning models and the statistics. So I think you could get by in data engineering without knowing any of the higher level and statistics or linear algebra, but I also think probably would help to have those things. And just because the job title says data engineer doesn't mean that you're not maybe going to get roped in to deciding which model to deploy in production or how the model needs tweaking in production. So it's probably helpful if you have the opportunity to learn about, statistics and kind of trailed off there. Sorry about that. Rascal 2 points out to Xcultum, many started and still stream without a camera. Emeta said, why would they hire data scientists if they only hire one? Well, if they only hire one, they probably yeah, if they're only hiring one data individual, they might do well to not hire a data scientist. I just remember reading somewhere that that's a pattern that happens sometimes, is an organization picks up a data scientist before the organization is really ready to have someone doing that description of work. But eMeta, I think that's your first chat. Thanks for stopping in. Shem says, yeah, great point. Would open more doors to have additional math, just trying to prioritize. Yeah, I think if you're interested in going the data engineering route, I would prioritize Python and patterns for building things over knowing the higher level statistics and calculus, and I don't remember which types of math you were asking about. Friday says, have a wonderful night and a wonderful first day at work tomorrow. I'll see you all around. See ya, Friday. Okay, let's get back into it with the Cold Wars kata. Keep hydrated. Nathan loves cycling because Nathan knows it is important. Most important to stay hydrated. He drinks 0.5 liters of water per hour of cycling. You get given the time in hours, and you need to return the number of liters that Nathan will drink rounded to the smallest value. Oh wow. What time is it? Because I just looked at this one and I just looked at this kata and my brain melted. I'm gonna go on a stream break and then let y'all know what's gonna happen next, because I gotta think about my job tomorrow. Oh. Okay, I am back. I can see, chat, you were enjoying the bouncing BRB logo. It's not anything I wrote up. It's not JavaScript. It's actually an app on Streamlabs desktop, which is the software I use for streaming. The most agonizing BRB logo ever. Xgaltum says it's some kind of code. Well, yeah, it's some kind of code. I wonder what kind of code. You know, it could be JavaScript. Like, that's totally possible. But it's not my JavaScript. I didn't write it. I just clicked on it. Pinkstar, if you build one, I'll use it. Build one and put the code on GitHub, and I'll use it. Well, I'm going to be honest, chat. I don't have it in me to do any more Code Wars tonight. Pinkstar says, okay, when I learn JS and how to GitHub, I gotcha. It's alright, I'll get by without it for now. I've got my Streamlabs hookup to the BRB DVD logo. Save the brain juice, that's right. Gotta be fresh for... TV Josh says do 30 crunches. I don't think I'm gonna do 30 crunches. Pickle Boy says, can I get some help with JavaScript, brother? What kind of help do you need with JavaScript? Semi-Nibblehack, thank you for the follow. JM, it says you'll have to come back and let us know how great your first day went. I will have to come back and let you know, for sure, I'll do that. Kitty's just chilling up there? Yeah, he's still up there. Hey, Kitty. He looks so superior right now, looking down at me. The beat just fell out from under itself. Pickle Boy says, I'm trying to build a sequence game where there are 9 squares with a letter in each except the 9th one, since the 9th one will require a user input. Okay. Jam says I'm going to get back to it, lots to get done, but glad to have stopped in. Do you stream often? I'm going to try to stream often. The music is a little loud, by the way. Oh, thanks for that tip. Let me back it off a couple clicks. Maybe another one click off of it. always tricky getting the levels just right. I'm unsure of how to use JavaScript that takes an array of strings to create those boxes. Or those squares. Also unsure how to specifically make it so that the last box has an input element. Well, I think your squares are gonna be HTML elements, right? You know, that's separation of concerns says use the HTML to define the content. Unless you're doing something like React where it gets flipped upside down and the JavaScript is the HTML. JM says, take care everyone, catch you for tomorrow's session. Pink Star, I'm usually in catch-up crew room. It's time for me to start thinking of an exit strategy in terms of like, who am I going to raid to end this stream? Time for me to wind down for the night. Oh, but official junior dev, what are you working on? I was doing some Code Wars, but I think I'm pretty much near ready to wrap up for the night. I've got a small glass of whiskey waiting for me that I think I'd like to sit back and just take that in. So let's see who's on Twitch. You went from 30 to almost 60 followers, solid raid. Thank you, Curtis. Yeah, that's a good jump. That's pretty excellent. Thank you, raiders. Thank you very much. Go to channel. Go to software and game development. Oh, I have to make decisions now? Ex-Skeleton Mess, what you drinking? I've got something called Wolfburn Scotch. We'll do this one. Pink Star says Aerend is cool. Is Aerend on right now? Okay, we can do Aerend. I see them. Thank you for the suggestion. I like suggestions. I like suggestions on who to raid. I like that. Okay, anyone want to say their last thoughts for the night? Oregon Curtis says, go get tomorrow. That's right, we go get. Thank you, chat. Robodon saying, you got this. Yep. Gonna have a good night's sleep. Gonna wake up. Gonna rock it at the new job. It's gonna be good. All right, let's make this raid happen. All right, good night, everyone.